Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning for this webinar. My name is Chad Vintier. I'm the Mobile GIS Software Solutions Manager here at Electronic Data Solutions. The subject for today's webinar is regarding the Esri Operations Dashboard, and we'll be talking about it in conjunction with Mosquito and Vector Control software. I do know that many on the call that registered for the webinar are not involved directly in that business, but the examples we'll show should apply to a variety of uses. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. The webinar will be 30 minutes today. We'll leave time at the end, about 5 minutes or maybe a little bit longer if we can, for questions. If you have questions as we go through the presentation, please type them into the questions panel and we'll get to them at the end. And if you have additional questions beyond that, we can follow up with you after the call as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about what the operations dashboard is and how it kind of fits in with the bigger picture. And then we'll get into showing you an example dashboard with a bunch of widgets and kind of how it's put together. The dashboards fit in with the storyline of helping executive decision makers with ArcGIS technology. Of course, dashboards as a concept are nothing new. Most of us have probably seen various dashboards with various pieces of software. A nice way to get a quick picture of what's going on, or some key performance indicators, some key statistics. Esri provides the operations dashboard tool as well as other tools for decision makers that can help sort of summarize and present operational data in an easily digestible form. What is the Esri Operations Dashboard? Well, it's a configurable app that comes with ArcGIS Online. It includes a desktop configurator, which we'll look at. And dashboards then are created, which can be viewed either in a browser or on a PC. The configuration is slightly different for each of those choices. A PC can support multiple monitors, and so there's a little bit more flexibility in how the widgets are laid out, but otherwise the configuration is exactly the same. The operations dashboard does require ArcGIS Online login in order to use. It can be authored and shared publicly, but as we'll see, it'll ask for a login when someone goes to try to use it. It is intended as an internal app, so if you've got operations systems where you're entering data, the dashboard is a place where you can, take a look at what's going on with that data collection effort. How is a dashboard created? These are the general steps, and there are nice tutorials on the Esri website for doing this. And we'll get in and show some of these steps in brief. But first, we would create a web map in ArcGIS Online using a feature service. So if you're not familiar with what feature services are, how to get them, that would be the starting point. And those can come from a variety of data sources. Basically, a feature service would be something that you would create and publish to either ArcGIS Online or to your own ArcGIS server. So if your organization has server or has an ArcGIS Online account, you can get feature services from existing data. And that can be either from geodatabases or even from shapefiles, or even other non-spatial data sources can be turned into feature services. So you get feature services, you get a web map, and that web map then is configured. You can configure things such as filters on the data, symbology, pop-ups, and a host of other things. After configuring everything in the web map, then you turn that into a web application using the operations dashboard. So when we select operational view as the choice there, we get the operations dashboard program where we can configure all these cool widgets. Setting up the dashboard and what kinds of widgets are available and how to configure them is what we'll primarily focus on the demonstration of the software this morning. After the dashboard is created, then you would share it in ArcGIS Online sharing model with internal groups or with other groups or even with the public. So let's take a look at operations dashboard, and I'll bring over a dashboard that is already set up, and then we'll take a look at how that's configured. Okay, so we've got a simple dashboard here, and the panel on the left includes multiple pages of widgets, which I'll explain. And on the right then is just a typical sort of map widget. And this map widget has the usual things that you would expect in an Esri tool, such as choice of base maps, measuring tools, ability to turn layers on and off, measurement tools, as well as address search and geocoding. The map can be configured rather easily. These various tools can be turned on and off for people by merely going into settings for this widget and turning things on or off. It's also possible even to turn on driving directions so that if the user will be using this on a tablet in the field, they would be able to get directions. So I've turned on a layer, and this widget is the map legend. So as I turn layers on, things will show up there so the user knows what they're looking at. I can look at pop-ups, which are configured in the web map. So that's all fairly basic stuff. Let's look at some more interesting widgets that are already configured. And I've got several pages of these. So this panel is an example of several statistics widgets. I'm going to go ahead and turn the service request layer off because it's got lots of points in it. And what you'll see is as I move around the map, those widgets automatically adjust. So maybe I want to see this area of the map, the statistics automatically adjust. So I'm showing total site visits, total treatments, and total acres treated. These widgets can be set up to use data sources that either do adjust based on the map extent or that do not. So if I can get in and look at the example here of, let's say, inspections, I've got a filter set, recent inspections, and it's set to use data that is within the last month. And so we actually have the ability here to do a relative time query, which is a pretty cool thing. So if we're using a time, we can use relative to current time and within the last X number of days, months, weeks, or whatever. But we can specify whether that data is limited to the current map extent or not. If we have it not use the current map extent, then it'll use everything, and we should see that statistic update. A couple other examples of statistic type widgets that are useful. I've got some averages here. Average dip count on inspections, average landing rate, and if I zoom out to the full extent, then I should see that average landing rate update. And then an average trap count, which would start to populate if we start entering lab data. Let's look at the next panel here. So in this panel, we've got some examples of some charts, bar chart and line chart. So we've got service requests by status, service requests by type, and landing counts. The cool thing with these charts is that they're interactive too. So if I want to see where all of the open requests are, I can right-click on it and highlight it. And it will highlight those on the map for me and zoom to it. These choices of what to do here in the pop-up are configurable in the widget. So for feature actions, maybe I want to also be able to select them or show a pop-up. So I can turn that capability on, right-click on the open ones, select them. And of course, they're turned off in the layer display, so I have to turn them on for that to show. So there's the service requests that are selected. I could look at the pop-up and get further information. All of the charts behave that way. So if I get zoomed back out here, I'll turn off the service request layer again and go back to the full extent. So on the landing count data, we can't really see all the details here, but most of the landing counts are very low, but some of them are fairly high. So if we want to know where the landing count was high, then same thing, we can configure a feature action. So we're going to say that we want to highlight that, and we want to zoom to the feature when we select the highlight. We can even make it so that when we click that, that's what automatically happens. So make that change on the widget. Okay, so there's one of them that's high, another one that's high. So they're all right in the same area. So these interactive statistics aren't just a number. They are interactive with the map, and that's one of the cool things about the operations dashboard, Esri's operations dashboard. Okay, let's look at a couple of the others, widget types. We've got a couple of histograms here. So here's one for rainfall, showing the distribution of recent rainfall data entry. And each of these ranges, you can see the count. And same way with these, you can select them and show where they're at on the map. Did the same with the landing rate. So histogram showing that most of them are low, but there's a couple that are higher. And same thing if we wanted to configure the feature action to be able to highlight that. And we can do that. So these widgets are very easily configured. Take a second for it to update. We've got another widget down at the bottom, which is, there we go. So it's highlighting all the ones that are in that category. The statistic at the bottom is a target indicator. One of the widget types is a target indicator. So if you wanted to have some statistic that was either below or above a certain value, you can configure that. So our average landing rate it's showing is 1, which is lower than some target rate. Maybe we want to keep landing, or we would like landing rates to be under 5 or under 10 or whatever. We can specify that, and it would show an alert here if that value was higher than that amount. And those alerts would pop up even if the operations dashboard was minimized. Another sort of widget type is kind of feature information. So if we're wanting to look at individual service requests and get details on them, we can have a list here of service requests that are open or that are assigned. And as we click on the list, then it will show the details down below. And we have the same options of right-clicking and highlighting or doing some other feature action. And then we get the feature details. This can also be set up to just pop up a feature pop-up so that editing can take place, depending on how you would like to use the dashboard. All the ones that we've set up here are just read-only. Another widget type that's really very flexible and useful is a query widget type. So we set up a number of queries for treatments here. And if we wanted to be able to query where all of the Alticid treatments happened, then we could specify that, execute the query, and then it shows the results down below, and we could see where those were at on the map. These queries are ad hoc and can be can be configured rather easily. So I've got one for method, one for technician, one for product. But if we wanted to add others, then it would be relatively easy to do it. Let me get zoomed out to the full extent here, and then we'll try one of these again. So we have a lot more choices, and we can select multiples and highlight them all. So if we wanted to add additional queries, we can go in and configure this widget and just add another query. If we wanted to be able to search for any treatment based on the amount of area treated, then we could put in, name the query, and have access to the full data model there. And we can specify that it be prompted, that the user be prompted. So we've added that query. Now it shows up in the queries list, and the user can go in and enter in any value, execute the query, get the results, show them on the map, and do various things with them. So very flexible. So those are an example of some of the widgets that can be configured with the operations dashboard. Let's briefly take a look at the web map that's used as the basis for this. And we'll use as an example here just turning on that service request layer, which has all the service requests even that are closed. And when we turned that on, there were lots and lots of dots on the map. And maybe all we're concerned about in this operational view is what's currently happening. So let's look at the web map, and we'll set a filter on that layer in the web map. So this is in ArcGIS Online. Here's the web map. And in the service request layer, I'm going to go in and set a filter. And we're going to put here for the filter status is not closed. And when we apply that filter and save the web map, then next time we go into the operations dashboard, and I may have to close and reopen that for that to show up here because I don't have it set to automatically update the data constantly. Then all of those closed requests will not be there. So we'll try turning it off and back on, just see if that will do it. I think I would have to close it and reopen it. A couple of other things in that web map, though, that I do want to show. Whatever we set for a refresh interval here also affects the dashboard. So some layers, let's say a track log layer, if we're having a field crews running around and as they collect data, their current location is saved as a track log, then we could set an automatic refresh interval, let's say of every 10 minutes. And then operations dashboard will use that and automatically update the data. Additionally, anything that we set here for symbology will carry over, as well as anything that we set for the pop-up. I want to show the pop-up for the trap results layer. So for the pop-up, we can specify the title and what to show on the pop-up, as well as a list of attributes. And since this is a feature service, this is where we could also enable editing on some of this information for certain layers that might make sense. For trap data that's been entered in the lab, that probably does not make sense. Also, we can specify that the pop-up could contain charts, and so we've set up a chart here of species counts that shows counts of certain species. This would also show any picture attachments that were collected in the field. And so if we go back to the dashboard and we'll turn on the trap results layer. And so when I right-click on one of the trap results, and this is symbolized to show the overall magnitude of the counts for the trap. If we show the pop-up, then it will also show the details of when it was collected, the total, and then the counts by species here. So there's a lot of flexibility in how this is put together. The web map is the driving force for it, and then the widget configuration adds to it after that. I'll briefly show adding a couple new widgets, and then we'll open it up for questions. So here in the dashboard, I've got all these panels that I showed you. If I want to add a new panel, I can insert a new panel, specify how it's laid out, and I'll just move that over, and then add a new widget. So let's say I want to add a new pie chart. I'm going to base that on recent time card entries, and it's going to be activities by type, and we'll display feature counts as segments, and we'll have it segmented by field tech, and then we'll have it show labels here. For feature actions, we'll have it enable highlight. Okay, so now we've got a widget that shows the activities by field tech, and we can right-click and have it highlight that. So it's relatively easy to add new widgets. So once we're done, we would just, save that operational view, and this operations view then is available in my ArcGIS online account, and I can share that with whoever. So I have a couple of questions for you, and then you might have some questions for me. If you have had questions on anything, please send them in the panel. I've got a couple of polls to just ask while we're reviewing those. The first one is just whether you're currently using the operations dashboard. And this could be you personally or your organization. Okay, it looks like a few have already been using it, and most have not yet. Hopefully some of the things we've shown you today would increase your interest in that. Okay, about 25% are using it already. That's pretty cool, and about 70, it's almost 80% not using it. Okay, thank you for your input on that. And then this question is, would you like to use it with your operational data? Many of the folks on the webinar are using either FieldSeeker or Sentinel software, and then, like I said, a lot of the attendees aren't using Mosquito control software; they're doing other things. So, if you're interested in using the dashboard, that's something that we can help point you in the right direction, do for you, or help train you to do using the ArcGIS Online Jumpstart. Okay, most are saying yes, about 75% yes, and 25% not sure. And the not sure probably comes from not sure exactly what's required to get it to work and how much effort it is. So I'm just guessing there. Follow-up question then is, what information would you most like to see in a dashboard? Surveillance data is often a big one for people because it's sometimes hard to visualize that info. It's often kept in separate systems or just available to lab people. Same can be true of aerial or truck spraying. And we'll be real curious for those who are putting in other, either in the follow-up at the end of this webinar or just in the chat panel, if you would let us know what that other is. And we're just curious to see how people would like to use data that they've got. We're running up close to our 30 minutes, so I'll finish my polls. And the last one, I'll save until I look at the questions. One of the questions is, does this use Esri points? If yes, do you have a rough breakdown of how many points it takes to get something like what you have shown today? So it uses Esri feature services. Those can be points or they can be other geometry types too, line or polygon. In fact, some of the layers that we've got, like aerial spray line, that's actually polygon. It doesn't have to be points. A rough breakdown of how many points it takes to get something like what you have. What we're using here is actual recent operational data from Florida Keys Mosquito. So it's realistic data that's been entered by the field crew. Don't really have a number there, but using realistic data is certainly helpful so you can get some decent statistics. In some of the tests we did, we took just a couple of months of data, published a feature service from that so that we could test out the dashboard. So if you're looking to try this out, that might be a good way to start. You know, clip out some data for a certain area or for a certain time frame. Will the ArcGIS Online work with Sentinel? I see you're using FieldSeeker. That's one of the questions. It can work with Sentinel. Sentinel being a desktop system using a file geodatabase, what it would involve in the setup is publishing that data to a feature service in ArcGIS Online. And so it's not going to be a fully live system. You would have to periodically, republish that data, from your operational system. So whether that's daily or weekly or however often you'd want it to, that's how that it could be used in conjunction with the dashboard. Okay, a follow-up question to the one about the points. Does it use credits? Does it use credits? There's a credit calculator, and some of you probably looked at that. It clears up some questions and probably raises others. The short answer is no, unless you're using hosted feature services for which there is some credit usage for data storage. The operations dashboard does use named ArcGIS Online users, though. So if someone wants to be able to take a look at the dashboard internally, they'd have to have a login. Is there a limit on the number of features you enter? Is another question. Number of widgets. There's no hard limit placed on the number of widgets that you can configure. It does take some experimentation to get the right kind of performance on the map widget versus some of the calculations, and on the refresh intervals if you have those configured. So if you have lots of data using a feature service, it's going to pull all that data down either from ArcGIS Online or from your server. So there are server calls happening there, and if you have lots of data, it can affect the performance. So display scales and other things like that can help with that. But as far as these statistics, this is hitting thousands, tens of thousands of data points, and those statistics calculate fairly quickly as we move around the map. So there might be some delay as those statistics update, but it isn't too bad. Okay, there may be other questions. If so, please do follow up with us after the webinar. I'll just conclude with a couple of concluding slides here so you have some contact information as well as an idea of how we can help if you'd like some help. We do offer ArcGIS Online Jumpstart packages in which we would help you set up your account and learn everything there is to know about how to build content in ArcGIS Online so that you'd be fully self-sufficient. At the end of that implementation and training kind of engagement, you would have a dashboard and you would know how to create more stuff yourself. We can also create dashboards for you. So if you just would like someone to do it and work with you on what's the content would be, we can do that. As I mentioned, you can use this directly with FieldSeeker because it's already a service-based system. You can also use it with Sentinel. And in the setup of a dashboard, we would help configure that process to publish the data to ArcGIS Online. The same would be true if you're using any other ArcGIS-based system. If it's already services-based, then you really just have to get a hold of the dashboard through ArcGIS Online and configure it. If it's not services-based, then there might be some configuration to publish data, and you can use it with anything that you have, including non-GIS data through that method. So here's our contact info. Please do reach out to myself or to Ryan if you're interested in doing any of those things, and we sure appreciate your attention and questions today. Thank you very much.